the last 3 videos threw you into all the basic features of Romance verb endings. The helping verbs you'll meet this time also have endings that reflect those same basic features, so you'll need to be familiar with them. Abere can be present indicative abes, preterite abesti, or present subjunctive abias, to throw just a few forms your way. With all of those endings in mind, take a look at 2 helping verbs, abere and essere. Why can they act as helping verbs? Well, they sometimes sit next to a meaning-heavy verb, like cantare, but do most of the grammatical work. The main content verb, cantare in this example, is in some invariable or less variable form. These forms are typically non-personal. They carry no person-number information in their ending. You've met one of these forms already, the infinitive, like cantare, but verbs also have a past participle, like cantatu. These can be adjectives, as in verbo cantatu, but they're also very handy in phrases with abere, has cantatu, habemus cantatu. Gerunds and present participles also exist, cantandu, cantante. Rewind to that example I showed you with abere cantatu. Perfect. What's going on here? It's the same thing that happens in English have sung. The main grammatical verb, have, isn't the same as the main content verb, sung. In French, Italian, and other Central Romance languages, the verb essere comes into play with verbs of motion and other verbs that don't take direct objects. Essere has unexpected forms. So for venire, to come, we find est venito in these languages. È venuto, il est venu, elle est venue. With essere, these participles describe the person performing the action, so they have to match the number and gender of the subject. Illo figlio est venito versus illa figlia est venita. Not so with abere. Illo figlio at cantatu, illa figlia at cantatu. Iberian and Romanian languages use abere with all verbs, venire included. Ha venido, ha venit. Romanian, Italian, Romansh, French, and Sardinian use this perfect tense for their regular past tense, instead of the preterite cantai, which we find, for example, in formal written Italian or French. Compare this to Spanish or Portuguese, which continue the use of cantai colloquially. It is sung, it is done. This same way of forming the passive is found in Romance, with essere plus a past participle. Est cantatu. Scribere meant to write. Scriptu is the past participle written. What do you think a scriptu means? That's a perfect construction. What about est scriptu? That's a passive. There's another very popular Romance passive that goes like this. Se scribet, literally, it writes itself, which we'll learn about later. The help of Romance helping verbs doesn't stop there. Modal verbs, like the auxiliaries can, want to, need to, or ought to, are mood verbs that introduce an infinitive. Posso cantare. Debbio cantare. Another use of auxiliaries. Western Romance languages have the equivalent of go to before an infinitive for near future events, much like English does. Va cantare, vai cantar, il va chanter. And one more use of helping verbs. Western Romance languages, not including French, can use stare as a helping verb with a gerund to point out something being done right now. Stat cantandu. Stamos cantando. Sardinian uses essere in this same way. So cantande. Semus cantande. Essere and abere get a lot of mileage in the modern languages, beyond their use as auxiliaries. Abere is heard in many everyday phrases like asfamne and attrazione. Essere is the copula or linking verb. Illa casa est magna or illi figli sunt homines. If you've been following along so far, I congratulate you. You've made it through Romance verbs, and now you're prepared for pronouns.